ये रवि जी बैकग्राउंड उल्टा क्यों आ रहा है आज, क्या बात है?
Good evening, everyone. Once again, I welcome you all on the third day of this 7 days faculty development program cum workshop on research methodology, technicalities of writing thesis and research papers. I hope you all have enriched on yesterday by excellent delivery of the session by Dr. Hina Thanki from Gujarat. Good evening, everyone. Once again, just a minute. I welcome you all. Now I would like to take opportunity to introduce our today's resource person, Dr. Ashish Dahiya, Professor, Institute of Hotel and Tourism Management and Founder Director, Center for Life Skills and Soft Skill, MD University Rohtak, Haryana, for the topic Measurement Scales and Scaling Techniques in Research Methodology. Professor Ashish Dahiya is an experienced professor and renowned speaker of hospitality and tourism management with a demonstrated history of working in the university, administration, and industry. Established hotel and tourism management in various universities in India and abroad, skilled in hospitality operation and management, food of India, hygiene and housekeeping, strong academic professional with an attitude for research. He has completed FDP from IIM Kozhikode and Executive Education Program from IIM Ahmedabad. With over 20 years of experience, Dr. Dahiya comes with hands-on expertise across hospitality and tourism industry as well as education. An immersive specialist, he has been in pre-opening of leading luxury hotels. He has established several university teaching departments of hospitality and tourism in India and UAE. With years of experience in education, Dr. Ashish specializes in developing high-performance cultures and as a result, a result-oriented work environment. Dr. Ashish is a professional who leads the team with an example. He focuses on the quality performance of all elements. His key academic and administrative with proven track record assignments include established Department of Hotel Management at BIT, Mesra Ranchi as founder member and launched India's first University Journal of Hospitality Application and Research as founder editor, received appreciations from Vice Chancellor also. He has strengthened Institute of Hotel and Tourism Management, MD University Rohtak as Director of University Institute, ISTM, was rated amongst the top hotel schools of India by various agencies during his term, offering bachelor's to PhD program in STM. Dr. Ashish has been awarded the Pearson Teaching Awards, Gem of Hospitality Award, and now he is professor at the Institute of Hotel and Tourism Management and founder director, Center for Life Skill and Soft Skill, MD University Rohtak, Haryana. Dr. Ashish is combining his expertise to start and develop space with effective leadership towards preparing a new generation of talent for tomorrow's world. He has developed online content for platforms of the Ministry of Education, Government of India. Sir, it is our pleasure to have you in this mega event with us. And thank you so much for sparing your valuable time for this 7 days FDP cum workshop, sir. I would like to invite Professor Dahiya to start the session. Sir, please unmute.
Namaskar, Professor Dr. S.S. Modi, sir, Professor Anil Mehta, sir, and dear friend, Captain Dr. Ravi Modi. Ladies and gentlemen, it's indeed a pleasure to be there in this 7 days national online faculty development program, cum workshop on research methodology. Believe me, when I received a message from Dr. Ravi Modi, I was thrilled that there is a pool of talented people who is thinking about doing something creative and innovative for the academic world, for the learners across India, rather globe, through this online platform. At the outset, I congratulate KG College of Arts and Science and Inspiria Research Association-IRA, Jaipur, Rajasthan, India, for taking initiative for organizing such online faculty development programs, come workshops on research methodology. Ram Ram from Haryana, that's how we greet in Haryana and Rajasthan. And let's start with a very interesting journey of scales and scaling techniques, measurement and scaling. I was listening through the kind words which Dr. Ravi was sharing, and in beginning he cited that you had meaningful experiences of the previous speakers about research. And from there itself, my topic becomes relevant. That if I ask Dr. Ravi, Dr. Ravi, what is your height? He would aptly say these many centimeters or these many inches or 5 feet and 11 inches or 6 feet and 2 inches or 5 feet or 10 inches and so and so. If I ask Professor Dr. S.S. Modi, sir, that, sir, what is your weight? He would happily tell that it's 70 kilograms, 75 kilograms, 65 kilograms. But if I ask the audience who had enjoyed the sessions yesterday and tell that how happy you are from the previous sessions, probably if somebody answers that, sir, we are 5 kilograms of happy, or we are 5 feet and 11 inches happy, I think there is an issue with the scales and measurement. And that's how the relevance of the topic is established, that when we talk about research, it is a scientific, rational process with certain logical steps. And it is replicable, testifiable, verifiable. So when we talked about measuring height, it was 5 feet and so many inches, or these many inches, or these many centimeters. There was no doubt about questions. There was no doubt about scales or measurement. When we talked about weight, this much of kilograms or lubans or grams, pounds, there is no dilemma about the measurement of weight. But when we talk about measuring happiness, measuring the level of satisfaction, yes, we need to certainly look forward for that, how the measurement should take place, how the scale construction should take place. Or if we say that we have to measure attitude, yes, we need to really think and rethink that how that would be measured. Well, if you are enjoying this session and the audio and video are loud and clear to you, type E into the chat box so that I get to know from the audience that yes, I am reaching to you. And I'm delighted to see Dr. Ravi Modi, Anush Oranji, Atulji, Balveen Kaurji, Devendra Raj Singh ji, lovely Sincha MG, sending message into the chat box. Well, let me tell you, friends, this would be a dialogue. It won't be a monologue. And we would be having a lot of chats into the chat box so that you enjoy and you're not bored into this. After all, this 2 hours investment is exclusively and exclusively for you. And I would love that in this times of investment, we have a lot of interactions with each other. So I'm happy to see Balveen ji, Devendra Raj Singh ji, Dr. B. Adala Saru Sahab, Dr. M.S. Vasu, Harshita ji, and a lot of people here in this session. Good to have message from Priyanka Dahiya, lovely Priyanka. Now, we were talking about scales, attitude, and measurement. So that also inspires me to take you to a very interesting session and take you to a very interesting presentation. Allow me to share the screen so that I can take you to this presentation today. And we have an interesting journey of attitude and measurement through today's session. Well, just taking a moment to share my screen. And yes, here it is. Let me share my sound and video clip as well. Perfect. All right. So right here is on the screen. So this presentation is exclusively dedicated for today's discourse on measurement scales and scaling techniques in research methodology. And I've already set up the context that when we talk about measurement and scaling techniques and research, that when we talk about measurement, measuring attitude, happiness, or how did somebody enjoy or grab or an event, I think this topic is a really. Well, though Captain Saab has been really kind to share information about me, but when I was being approached about, the first thing which was important for me was to know that how do I fit into the spirit of this session. You see, I am a person from an applied domain, hospitality and tourism, and has been an alma mater of Institute of Hotel Management Bhopal under aegis of Ministry of Tourism, Government of India, in batch 1999, and then did my PhD in Hotel and Tourism Management from Kurukshetra University. And hospitality and tourism is an applied domain. And we are a firm believer that hospitality and tourism is everybody's business. There is nobody in this world who has left untouched by hospitality or tourism, both at personal or professional levels. Well, friends, we started India's first journal of hospitality application and research. That is India's first university journal of hospitality and presently ABTCA ranked journal. And I have been blessed that we started with the International Journal of Hospitality and Tourism Systems. So this is India's only Scopus Index journal of hospitality and tourism in the listing of about 140 journals of hospitality and tourism in Scopus across the globe. And I'm a passionate speaker and a PhD guide. And that's how I feel that, yes, coming into today's session makes me fit into the spirit and take you to the essence of today's research journey. Well, is it that what I am talking about or what Captain Modi has talked about or this workshop is being discussed about is something that we thought, we planned and executed? Are there people across the world also talking about it? I think yes, there are. You'll find a lot of contents and details on similar aspects being talked about on various digital platforms on Government of India and abroad. Let's go through a very small video to set a final tune in this context. I'm just playing the video. Please type into the chat box if the audio and video are clear. Type into the chat box so that I get.
If you are interested in measuring temperature, you make use of thermometer. If you are interested in measuring pressure, you use manometer. Likewise, in research, when you intend to collect material related to the various variables, you make use of the measuring tools or the devices. These measuring tools are the devices to collect quantitative data and the information related to a research study. These tools allow the researcher to implement the research method and produce data for analysis. Measuring tools can be broadly classified into two categories: researcher designed and the standardized tools. Researcher design a number of tools to gather the relevant data if these tools are not already available or there is a specific purpose which need to be served by these tools. These measuring tools can be questionnaires, interview schedules, observation schedules, opinionaire, attitude scales, perception scales, achievement tests, etc. Standardized tests are those tests which provide for the measures of validity, reliability, and are accompanied by norms for interpreting the scores of various individuals. They also have set standard procedure for administration and scoring. So a researcher can select tools from the available tools, maybe standardized or otherwise, and researcher can design and develop his own measuring tools as per the requirements of the study. The characteristics of good measuring instrument include that these measuring tools are valid, reliable, and feasible. Valid means that the measuring tool measures what it intends to measure. If you are interested in measuring the achievement of your students in physics, that means the achievement test contains items related to the content of that particular subject, and all items are relevant to the specified content. Or if you are interested in measuring the emotional intelligence, all items measure the various aspects of emotional intelligence. Reliability refers to the consistency of results, and if you administer the same tool twice on the population or the sample, you are likely to get the same or the similar results where the relative position of the people doesn't change. So reliability refers to consistency of results, or in other words, the results obtained by a measuring tool are dependable. Feasibility means that the test or the tool is applicable in the context, on the sample, and can be easily administered in the given circumstances. So, while making a selection of a measuring tool, the researcher must keep these three important characteristics in mind, and those tools which fulfill the criteria of validity, reliability, and feasibility can be selected for gathering quantitative or qualitative information for the study.
Thank you, friends. Well, I must say that you are investing time for this interesting session and setting a context by making use of this video from the digital platform of Government of India has indeed set a tone and tune for today's topic of measurement and scaling. Well, this session is indeed relevant for university and college students and teachers because they both are actively engaged in academic research. The session is really interesting and can be of immense benefit to the learning and development, marketing, and other managers from industry, teaching associates, PhD scholars, and other passionates. Well, after attending this session, you shall be able to understand the concept of measurement and evaluation and related aspects. You have at least have a fairer idea by this time that what all is expected from researchers when they go with the measurement and scaling from the short video depicted in the session's beginning. Well, You shall also be able to explore various types of scales and their attributes today, and you shall develop an understanding about test construction. I think that's quite a good takeaway by joining this faculty development program, come workshop. And I once again compliment the organizers and appreciate all of you for being a part of good audience in this program. Now let's try understand that what is the concept of measurement and scaling. Now you see that measurement can be defined as a standardized process. Now, if you ask me that how much water is there in this bottle, I'll say 750 ml, 500 ml, 250 ml, or n ml. What is the length of this highlighter? 6 inches, 9 inches, or 7 inches? Or what are the dimensions of this mobile phone? One can easily see, explain, and mention. Well, if you look in detail, what we did, we talked about certain numbers or characteristics, that it was in inches, it was in grams, it was in milliliters, and so and so. So measurement is a standardized process where we assign either numbers or symbols to certain characteristics of objects of interest. Now, when we talk about objects of interest, here comes another interesting thing to think about, that what can be these objects of interest. Now, since we are talking in context of research, I'm sure that in the beginning of this workshop, you are acquainted or you have been acquainted with what the different characteristics of research. And when we talk about research, objective properties and subjective properties have been taken care or covered off. Well, we shall be talking about these in the coming time today as well. Now, when I started with today's discussion, we talked about that, let's say that what is the height of Captain Dr. Modi Sahab? And we responded that it could be 5'7", 5'11", 6'2" inches, etc., etc. But then if we intend to measure that how happy are you from this workshop? So the first question is, are you happy from this workshop? If you are happy from this workshop, type H into the chat box. Let's see how many chats do we get into our response on this platform. Wow, Sinchana M, lovely, wonderful getting response from you. Priyanka, superb. Balveen Kaur, superb. K. Krishna Kumar, superb. Pooja Bhardwaj, superb. Rency Joseph, superb. Getting so many H represents that yes, the audience is happy and they are actively participating in this workshop. But now comes the question that how happy they are, to what extent they are. Well, Shobna Bain mentions that good, and many participants, Rensi, Pooja have mentioned H, but then we don't know that Balveen Kaur is 5 kilograms of happy, Priyanka Dahiya is 250 milliliter happy, and K. Krishna Kumar is happy by 7 inches. Now here comes a context that when we talk about measurement, it refers to the process of assigning numerals to events, objects, etc., according to certain rules. And measurement consists of rules for assigning numbers to objects in such a way as to represent the quantities of attributes. Therefore, it indicates that in the process of measurement, numbers are assigned according to certain set of rules, and measurement is always concerned with certain attributes or features of the object. So here again, the term object has appeared in this discussion. So let's underline this term object, and we will come back to it, that how the attributes or features of the objects can be measured. Now, when we talk about features of the object, please do highlight it, do underline it, that we are measuring the features of the object and not the object. Let me elucidate it with the help of an example, that when we started today's discussion, in the initial context, I started with a very happy aspect and cited that what must be the height of Captain Dr. R.K. Modi. Now, I am talking of measuring an attribute of or features of the object, right? And I'm not measuring the object. And if I say that how or what kind or how happy is Captain Dr. Modi, so I'm again talking about the feature of Dr. Modi, the object. I'm not measuring the object. So when measuring attributes of a person, researcher is usually faced with the two difficulties. He or she may be asked to measure an attribute, the existence of which is doubtful. So many a time, we do not know that how that attribute is being measured. As mentioned in the video which was used for this session, we talked about that there are two kinds of measurements or two kinds of scales. One which are already developed, two which we customize according to the requirements. Now, we also need to understand that when we measure attributes, they are not unitary, rather they are a mixture of several sub-attributes. So here comes another important thing to keep into consideration while understanding the process of measurement. Say we intend to measure how happy you are. When we said all those who are happy, type H into the chat box, we could see a lot of H coming into the chat box. But then the question which we must think as a researcher is, what all encompasses of happiness? What are the various sub-attributes that collectively come or contribute to happiness? So we will be talking about all of them in detail. If you have understood so far, type U into the chat box. And if you are getting bored, type B into the chat box. And if you think the session is irrelevant, type U into the chat box. Let's see that how many bored, how many irrelevant, or how many enjoying sessions, chats, responses do we see into our chat box. Waiting for your responses. Quick, and quick. Lovely, Priyanka. You are the quickest to respond. I wish if you would have been in KBC, you would have got the fastest finger first prize. Well, but I can always appreciate and clap for your fantastic responding. Well, lovely, Krishna Kumar ji, Sanchana M ji, Devendra Raj Singh ji, wonderful. You all are a lovely audience. Now, let's move on to this discussion that when we talk about measurement in research, researchers engage in using the measurement process by assigning either numbers or labels. Now, numbers or labels are being assigned. So think about of a menu or a feedback form in a restaurant, or during pandemic times, you might have ordered some food from Swiggy or Zomato. And at the time, once you received your order, you must have got a feedback message that please give a feedback about our services, showing 5 smileys with one with an ugly face, one with a flat lip, and one with a smiling face, and 2 in between. And there were some labels that were being given to assess, to measure their efficiency of services. In many of the service providers cases, there are numbers that are being provided that when you availed food from service provider X, Y, or Z, out of 5, how much do you rate the quality of food that was given to you, 5 being the highest and 1 being the lowest? And then there were certain sub questions into 8 that apart from the food, how good were the services, how efficient was the delivery, how prompt was the fellow to deliver, was his behavior good or bad, and so and so. Thank you, Shobna Ben, for your wonderful response. Well, now what do we do in measurement? Researchers engage in using by assigning the numbers or labels to what? To what do they assign? To people's thoughts. What did they think about? To people's feelings, happy, unhappy, passionate, not passionate, to people's behaviors, how did they behave, and their characteristics. So think about these, that it is primarily taking you to certain interesting point, which I would like to say is intangible aspects. Did you notice that nobody asked you when Swiggy, Zomato, or any other food service provider provided you service was keen to know that the delivery boy's vehicle was a good one or a bad one? They only talked about delivery time. They only talked about the service. They only talk about the food was served to you at the correct temperature or not. They only talk to you about how did you feel after placing an order from their virtual platform or app. Now, all these leads to an interesting thing: the features or attributes of objects, the aspects of concepts or ideas. Well, now think about that when we talk about measurement process, in any type of phenomena or event, what do? We assign numbers or labels to measure intangible characteristics along with certain tangible aspects. And those can be thoughts, feelings, behaviors, characteristics, concepts, aspects, ideas of a phenomena, a process, or an event, using specific rules to represent quantities and qualities of the factors being investigated. Now, here comes 3 important terms: quantities and qualities, and the factors being investigated. So if you are using a standardized scale, then there is no issue because its reliability, consistency, and validity has already been checked. But in case you are using your own designed scale, then certainly, yes, you need to be concerned about the various factors, what you are covering in that scale, what are the various variables you are touching upon, and those variables will be drawn from certain models which have already been tested or from the previous research that has been conducted. Well, if you have understood so far, type U into the chat box so that I get to know about that. Yes, you are understanding it. And if you are getting bored, type B into the chat box, waiting for your answers. Dr. Shelley, Shobna Ben, Priyanka, lovely. Lovely getting your responses. Wonderful audience you are. Believe me, as I stated, that it would be a dialogue, it won't be a monologue. And I would love to have responses and questions popping out from your and into the chat box. Good to have message from Siraj Devendra Raj Singh. Now, when we talk about measurement process, there are certain things which are important for us to understand at this point of time: the construct development and the scale development. Now, the goal of the construct development is to precisely identify what is to be measured. Unless the researcher is not clear about that what is to be measured, the responses are not going to help the researcher. So it is equally important that when you start with a research problem, when you start with measurement and scaling, you need to precisely identify what is to be measured. And are there any dimensionalities associated with it? If yes, then what are those dimensionalities which are associated with it? Once you have understood the concept of construct development, the goal of construct development, precisely identified what is to be measured along with the dimensionality, then comes the role of scale development. The goal of the scale development is how to precisely measure each construct. So if the construct, the scale, and these aspects, these dimensionalities of research are clear, your life as a researcher becomes easier and you enjoy your research journey now in whatever capacity, for writing a manuscript or an article, or writing a doctoral thesis, or your postdoctoral work, or your research dissertations or reports. Now, after understanding construct development and scale development, it is important for us to understand that what is an object. Friends, object refers to any tangible item in a person's environment that can be clearly and easily identified through senses. Now, what are the senses do we have? Sound, taste, touch, sight, and smell. So if we can clearly and easily identify through these five senses, we can say that we have an object. And an object has two properties. I would like to say that I have a water bottle in my hand. Now, it has certain properties which I can see, I can taste, I can touch, I can smell, I can taste, I can feel the sound. So all five sensory perceptions are giving me different visualizations of this object. Now this object will certainly have two properties. The first one are the objective properties. These are the properties or the attributes that make up this object. Now they are directly observable, physically verifiable, and measurable in nature. Now let us say that you need to mention three properties of this water bottle. Type it into the chat box. Let's see what all do you mention in terms of objective properties. Waiting for your responses into the chat box. quick. I'm also responding to you all about the 3 objective properties of this water bottle. Lovely. Let's see who mentions. I have responded that with these sensory perceptions, this bottle is of glass, is close to 9 inches, and is transparent. Type A if you agree to it, right? Let's see. How many responses do we get into the chat box? Wonderful. Pooja ji, Devendra ji, Professor Khushbu ji, Vipin Kumar ji, Priyanka ji, Shobna Ben ji, lovely. IBM, okay, lovely. Dr. T. Sarvanana, lovely. Now then comes is subjective properties. Now here comes a question. When I was showing you this water bottle, what did I do? I opened it up, I sipped, and I said, wow, maza. Now, this is a subjective property, the experience or the feeling of having this water bottle, having a certain brand name written on it and carrying it. Or if I take this mobile phone, there are certain subjective properties of length, breadth, height, width, dimensions, so and so. Then there are subjective properties of the pleasure, sense of pride of having this mobile phone, the happiness, the satisfaction which I get by using this mobile phone. Now they cannot be directly observed or measured. When I was taking this bottle, might be that I was having a sense of pride that I have this exclusive bottle. When I was having this cell phone, that made me feel a proud possessee of a brand of a cell phone. Now they are subjective properties and are intangible characteristics. These cannot be directly observed or measured. Let us understand it with some more interesting examples before we proceed ahead in this journey. Now, friends, let's say that you are traveling from Jaipur to Dubai. So naturally, you would be needing a courier to travel. So let's say that you have opted for Emirates Airlines or Air India or Air India Express or any XYZ brands of airline. Now there are certain objective properties. Objective properties includes the kind of airline, the seats, the leg space. These all are objective properties. Then comes the subjective properties. That includes the quality of services, the sense of pride, happiness, or satisfaction you had, or the feeling which your family had that you are traveling by brand X airlines, you are relatively safe. Or these flights usually have safe landing and takeoff, and so and so. Priyanka has mentioned facilities. Yes. So there are objective and subjective properties. Now let's be very clear about it. Many a times the new researchers, they only talk about the objective properties and say that the research is completed. No, they are highly mistaken. If you say that from Jaipur to Dubai, there are 10 flights that take off. These are the dimensions of the flights. These are the operators of flights. Flights have these many seating capacities. Flights have these many entertainment facilities. Flights, airtime is so and so. Most of the time, the flights are on time and land on time. Well, these all have been the objective properties of the flights, which you have taken from either some primary or secondary source. When you talk about research, you essentially need to have some study of subjective properties. So the consumer behavior in those flights, the passenger behavior of those flights, the staff attitudes in those flights, the perceptions of the passengers traveling by those flights, the perceptions of the air staff at the airport about those flights, etc., etc., can be so many examples to understand. Type U if you are able to understand this discussion in context of measurement and scaling. Type B if you are getting bored from this session, so that I get to know that there is something really that needs to be thought about. Let's see how many answers do we get into the chat box. Those who have understood, type U. Those who are getting bored, type B. Lovely getting responses from Priyanka, Pooja, Shobna Ben, IBM. I'm sorry, since I don't know your name, the system is saying IBM, so I'm reading it out as IBM only. Wonderful, wonderful getting responses from you all. Now let's talk about in another context on the same note. We intend to understand about passenger cars. We intend to do a perception study of the consumers or the potential buyers about sedans in India. So let's talk about any 5 sedans. Honda City, Hyundai Verna, Slavia, Ciaz, right? So they Volkswagen Vento. Now they are the 5 popular brands of sedans in India. And we intend to understand that how do consumers perceive about them as a brand. And we try to assess first the objective properties. So the length of the sedan, the weight of the sedan, the engine, the seats, then the wheels and the spare wheel, the color options. Now these all are the objective properties. Then we try to cover upon the subjective properties of the sedan, like in-flight, in sedan, entertainment systems, the level of comfort, the sense of pride as an honor by owning that sedan. What do neighbors feel or your family feel when you drive that sedan? The safety, of course, Shobna Ben, wonderful, and other such aspects. Now, I hope that makes it very clear to you that what all aspects do we cover when we do the measurement and scaling, and when we choose an object, talk about its objective property, talk about it subjective properties. So if you are clear about it, type C into the chat box, and then let us move ahead in this journey of today's discussion. Let's see how many C's do we get that yes, we are clear. Good, Sinchana M, Shobna Ben, Priyanka, Devendra Raj Singh, Rency Joseph, Professor Anil Mehta, IBM. Wonderful, wonderful. Now, after having understood this aspect, let us talk about the next important component. The context has already been set by the initial video that was showed to you on the screen in the beginning of today's session. We were talking about that when we conduct research, when we go with measurement and scaling, there is an important thing to keep into mind, that is about evaluation. Evaluation is exactly what? It is an appraisal or assessment with respect to some standard. Evaluation is a process wherein the parts, processes, or outcomes of a program are examined to see whether they are satisfactory, particularly with the reference to the program's stated objectives, to our own expectations or our own standards of excellence. Thus, evaluation involves a process of appraisal of an object or event with reference to some standard, which may be social, cultural, or scientific. So, please pay attention on this part. Evaluation involves a process of appraisal of an object or event. Two important things. With reference to some standard which may be social, cultural, or scientific, or a combination of these. So when you say that you are evaluating your study or your research or your question or your problem is being evaluated, or you are evaluating on these, do recapitulate this context which we talked today, that the appraisal or the assessment has to be with respect to some standard. Now, in this journey, let's move ahead now to scale measurement. Now, what exactly is scaling? Friends, ladies and gentlemen, scaling is a process of creating a continuum. Scaling is a process of creating a continuum on which objects are located. So what do? We create a continuum and we locate the objects according to the amount of the measured characteristics they possess. Isn't it so easy? Isn't the definition so clear? That in scaling, we create a continuum on which the objects are located according to the amount of the measured characteristics they possess. And scale development is designing questions to measure the subjective properties of the object, and that we have already covered when we were talking about the objective properties and subjective properties. So scale development is designing questions to measure the subjective properties of an object. Now quickly write into the chat box any two subjective properties of a motorbike, any two subjective properties of a car, any two subjective properties of a mobile phone. Let us see what all answers do I get from this wonderful audience on this virtual platform of this workshop. Type quickly two subjective properties of a motorbike, two subjective properties of a mobile phone. Lovely, Pooja. Car comfort level. Good, good. Car comfort level. Superb, fantastic. Sense of pride. Okay. Car kilometer. Well, car kilometer cannot be considered as a subjective property. It is an objective property. You can easily see. Bike mileage, okay, and handy. Ease of riding, you can say ease of riding. Bike driving experience, wonderful, Pooja. Lovely, lovely, wonderful. Good to see your responses. Good to see your active participation. Much appreciated. Wonderful. Wonderful getting so good responses from all of you. Lovely. Lovely. Shobna Ben, yes, superb. Wonderful, wonderful. So your answers make me feel happy, and I connote it with a smiley. Mobile, battery is an objective property, physical property, they are objective properties, Priyanka. Subjective properties would be the sense of pride I have as a proud owner of this mobile, right? Brand, okay, lovely, lovely, superb. Now, let's move to the characteristics of scale. Now, having understood the objective properties and subjective properties, we now move to the characteristics of scale. The scale possesses 4 characteristics, and there are 4 levels of measurement of the scale. They are very simple. Just listen to me carefully and attentively. Believe me, this would be an eye-opening session for measurement and scaling. I'm not going to talk something about rocket science or something very complicated. I'm going to talk all about fundamentals and basics that will help you to ease your research journey. So, friends, there are 4 characteristics of scale. The first characteristic is description. The second characteristic is order. The third characteristic is distance. And the fourth characteristic is origin. Now, let's talk about them one by one. Have you ever noticed that when you come across certain questionnaires, there are certain questions which are asked to you? Though in almost every questionnaire, it is being written that the information given by you shall be maintained confidentiality. This shall not be shared to any third party. Your personal data shall not be shared to anyone, right? And there are certain details which are asked from you. Say, for example, name. So it could be Ravi, it could be Ashish, it could be Anu, it could be Atul, it could be Balwain, it could be Dinesh, it could be Anil, it could be Shelly, it could be Usha, it could be Vasu, it could be Harshita, it could be Neelam, it could be Priyanka, it could be Rachna, it could be anything. Now, think about that. If you get to know information about name, what do you get? A description. It offers you a descriptive property. So you will get to know that now it is Darshana who is speaking. Now it is Anu who is there. Now it is Ravi who is there. And what kind of information is it? It is a nominal information which you get. और बहुत सरल भाषा में कहूं तो नाम मात्र की. I'll take another beautiful example here. Let's take it in context that many a times when you fill up forms, you are being asked a question about your religion or your food preference. So let us say that all those who are Hindus in this session type H into the chat box. We are talking about characteristics of scale, and we are talking about description, and we are talking about that in description, what are the levels of measurement that a description or a nominal scale gives. I'm writing H into the chat box that I practice Hinduism as my religion. So Shobna Ben, Priyanka, lovely getting your responses. Pooja, wonderful. IBM, superb. Now you see, here comes a very interesting thing that we all need to think about. We are talking about characteristics of a scale, and we are talking about description, the first characteristic, and the levels of measurement nominal. Now, the respondents to this question mentioned as Harish, Priyanka, Ashish, Shobna Ben as H, 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 and H. So we could realize that out of these, n number of respondents mentioned that they are Hindus or they practice Hinduism as a way of life or as a religion. Now comes a question. We have only got a nominal information here. We do not know from this question to what extent they practice Hinduism in terms of rigor. There is quite a probability that when you ask Priyanka, what was the last time you had visited a temple, or how many times in a week do you on an average visit a temple? Maybe that Priyanka might have visited once in a week, whereas Shobna Ben might visit thrice in a week. Pooja Bhardwaj visits 5 times in a week. IBM says in last 5 months, I have not been to temple. Or Ashish says that it has been almost 2 years I have not been to temple. So what I'm trying to say that with this first characteristic of description, we could get only a nominal information that what religion do you practice? We said H as Hinduism. But to what extent, we do not know. We do not know the intensity about it. We only know a nominal information, and the characteristic description of the scale gives only a nominal information. You cannot draw much inferences out of it, except a few that out of n number of audience, n X were found to be Hindu as their practicing religion. But to what extent, we cannot say it with certainty. So if the first characteristic of the scale as description and nominal are clear to you, type D and N into the chat box. I have mentioned it. The description is a characteristic of a scale and nominal is the level of measurement it gives. Let's see how many responses do we get into the chat box as description and nominal. DN into the chat box. Shobna Ben, Priyanka, lovely getting your responses. Super, Pooja. Now we move on to the next. The next characteristic of a scale is order. So the next characteristic of a scale, order, measures the ordinal data. I would like to put it now, re-paraphrase my question in a way that Pooja is 2 times faster in responding than Harish, or Priyanka has responded 3 more answers than Pooja, right? Or Pooja visits 3 times more for worshipping in a temple than Priyanka. Now what it is, you have an interval. You get an ordinal information out of it, but you actually do not know that how many times Pooja visits a temple or how many times Harish has responded to the questionnaire into the to my questions into the chat box. Type C if this is clear to you, that in the second characteristic of scale, where we talk about order, you get an ordinal information. And then we move on to the next characteristic of scale, that is distance. I usually tell the learners, good to see response from Pooja, Shobna Ben, wonderful, that the scale characteristics can be easily recapitulated with the formula DO, description, order, distance, origin. And there are 4 levels: nominal, ordinal, interval, ratio. So DO is a very simple formula which you can always keep in mind to recapitulate about characteristics of scale. And nominal, ordinal, and interval and ratio are the 4 respective levels of measurement of scaling. Good to have response from Renzi, Priyanka into this chat box in this session. Now we move to the third characteristic of scale, that is distance. Now distance refers to the interval. So the interval scale gives you the distance between the two, whereas you do not have an absolute information about this. I would like to say it with this beautiful example, that let us say in today's session, after the quiz, Priyanka Dahiya got the first prize, and the second winner was Renzi, and Pooja was the third winner. Now, description, you got nominal information, the number of people who participated. Order, first, second, third. Distance between first to second and second to third and third to fourth. We assume that the intervals are same, but in first, second, and third, try understanding. We have given you the order, but we have not mentioned the distance. We have assumed that the distance between 1, 2, and 3 is 1 each. Whereas it could be that when we say that Pooja scored first rank and obtained a score of 7, whereas Priyanka scored rank 2 with a score of 5, and Renu scored rank 3 with a score of 3. Now the intervals have changed here. But then, unless you do not know that what was the total scale, what was the origin, what was the absolute value, you will not be able to draw the correct inferences. So the fourth characteristic of a scale is origin, where you know the absolute value, that out of 7, Pooja got 7 out of 7. You know the origin. Or we can understand it through this example, that during last financial year, Pooja has spent this much amount of expenses for her travel out of her total earnings of financial year amount N. So you know the origin, you know the ratio, and you are able to go for an exact level of measurement. But remember, in social sciences particularly, ratio scale is not much used except a few stances. The majority of the usage is limited to nominal and ordinal, whereas in certain cases, interval scales are used. Once you have understood the characteristics of the scale as description, order, distance, and origin, and levels of measurement as nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio, it also becomes important for you to understand that the moment you know the characteristic of scale and level of measurement, you also easily know that what kind of tests can be applied on these scales. I'm sure that would be covered separately in some of the sessions on different tools and techniques used for research. Type C if the concepts are clear so far to you, so that we go ahead to the next journey of today's discussion. Looking forward for your answers. Devendra Raj Singh, Harish, Priyanka, IBM, lovely, lovely. Now, friends, just to recapitulate about scales, nominal, ordinal, interval, ratio, just look at your screen. Nominal, that there is a horse race taking place. Ordinal, show, place, and win. Interval, 20 seconds, 1 second. Ratio, win, 40-1, long shot pays $80. So this is a beautiful example to understand that how scales provide different information. Don't worry, the copy of this presentation will be sent to Dr. Modi on his WhatsApp so that he can share it with you later to help you to recapitulate things. I'm sure that with this example, nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio scale would have been certainly very clear to you in terms of conceptual clarity. Type E into the chat box if you have been enjoying this session, and type B into the chat box if you are bored with this session. Lovely getting responses from Priyanka, Vipin, IBM, Professor Khushbu, lovely getting responses. Harish ji, Dr. Shelley, Rensi, wonderful, wonderful. Now let's move in this journey. Friends, there are two broad classifications of the scales. We put them as comparative scales and non-comparative scales. In comparative scales, we have paired comparison. We have rank order scale. We have constant sum scale. We have Q-sort and other procedures in comparative scales. In non-comparative scales, we have continuous rating scales. We have itemized rating scale as Likert, semantic differential, Steppel, and Thurston scale. Well, after having understood these scales, it is imperative for us to know that these scales, when being categorized, they are used at different places in our research work. Now, let's talk about them. When we go for methods of attitude scales or opinioneers, the measurements of attitude is necessarily done indirectly. Now, what do? We stated that there is an object, there are objective properties, and there are subjective properties. Now, attitude is a subjective property. It can be measured only on the basis of inferences drawn from verbal statements regarding beliefs, feelings, and tendency to act towards the object or person. So, attitude scales are such indirect measures. I repeat, the measurement of attitudes is necessarily done indirectly. Attitude can be measured only on the basis of inferences drawn from verbal statements regarding beliefs, feelings, and tendency to act towards the object or person. Attitude scales are such indirect measures. There are three popular techniques. You go for method of equal appearing interval. You can also go for a method of summated ratings, and you can also go for method of cumulative scaling when you go for attitude measurement. Now let's talk about them one by one. Method of equal appearing interval. This was devised by Thurston in 1929. Then further Thurston and Chavez, and then Thurston in 1931. Now, what all it happens in this? A large number of statements, both favorable and unfavorable towards the object of attitudes, are collected from various sources. The number of statements may range from 100 to 200. Each statement is printed on a separate card. Subject experts are asked to sort these statements into a number of intervals, usually 11. Each subject is given 11 cards along with the statements. On each card, alphabet A to K are written and arranged as given below. Starting A as unfavorable, F as neutral, and K as favorable. Subjects are sorted and the experts are requested to sort the given statements in terms of 11 intervals represented by 11 cards. Ordinarily, there is a no time limit, but Thurston and Chavez reported that the subjects take about 45 minutes to sort 130 statements. And that's how the method of equal appearing interval is being used. Now we move to the method of summated ratings. Likert in 1932 developed this method of construction attitude scale and was named so by Bird in 1940. It is simpler than Thurston's equal appearing interval method. There may be certain people pronouncing it as Likert, certain people pronouncing it as Likert, but for us, what is more important is to understand that how this summated rating scale works. A large number of statements, usually with 5 alternatives. Remember one thing, that in majority of these scales, if not all, we usually go for 3, 5, 7, 9, or 11 statements. Here, the most popular one is of 5. In some cases, people do take 7 as well. So, after clearing this part, let me come back that a large number of statements, usually with 5 alternatives, strongly agree, agree, undecided, disagree, strongly disagree, concerning the object of attitude are collected. For example, nationalization improves the economy of the country. Strongly agree, agree, cannot say, or undecided, disagree, and strongly disagree. Another example, nationalization introduces a feeling of carelessness amongst individuals. Strongly agree, agree, undecided, disagree, strongly disagree are some of the relevant examples to help you to understand that how the method of summated ratings is being used. Let us quickly talk about them, that what are the advantages and disadvantages of various rating scales. Since the time is limited, I would have loved to talk much in detail about these scales, but then yes, there would be interesting supplementary videos which will be sent to you through the organizers to help you to cover up in detail about the contents of scales and scale development. Well, if you have understood so far, type U into the chat box. And if you are bored from this session, type B into the chat box. Let's see how many U's and how many B's do we get. Lovely getting from Priyanka, Shobna Ben, Somdev. Lovely, lovely. Pooja, Harish. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Senchana, Atulji, Devendra, superb, superb, unique world. You have been a wonderful and a participative audience. Now, friends, when we talk about advantages and disadvantages of rating scales, in category scale, the subject must indicate a response category. These kind of scales are flexible and easy to respond. The disadvantages include that the items may be ambiguous with few categories only. Gross distinctions can be made. Likert or Likert scale. Evaluate the statements on a scale of agreement. So the subject must evaluate the statements on a scale of agreement. This is one of the easiest scales to construct and is widely used in social sciences research. Well, there is a drawback of Likert scale. It is hard to judge what a single score means. Then comes the semantic differential and numerical scales. Here you choose points between the bipolar adjectives on relevant dimensions. The advantage is that semantic differential and numerical scales are easy to construct. Norms exist for comparison, such as profile analysis. Whereas the semantic differential and numerical scales have certain disadvantages, that bipolar objectives must be found and the data may be ordinal and not interval, which you will get at the end. Reconnect that we talked about 4 characteristics of scales: description, order, distance, origin, nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio. Then comes is staple scale. The staple scale subject must choose points on a scale with a single adjective in the center. The advantage is it is easier to construct than semantic differential and easy to administer. And the endpoints are numerical, not verbal or labels. In constant sum scale, the subject must divide a constant sum among response alternative. The approximates of interval measures is the advantage of the scale, whereas the disadvantage of a constant sum scale is it is difficult for respondents with low education levels. Then comes the graphic scale, and the subject must choose a point on a continuum. The advantage is the visual impact and unlimited scale point, but the disadvantage of a graphic scale is there are no standard answers. Well, in the rating measure, graphical scale with picture, the subject must choose a visual picture, and the advantage includes visual impact and easy for respondents, whereas the disadvantage is hard to attach a verbal statement or response to this. So this was brief about various rating scales, their advantages and disadvantages. Now we move to the functions of measurement. What do we do? In measurement, we do selection, we do classification, we do comparison, guidance and counseling, research, and we help in improving the classroom instructions. So measurement is used in all these different domains in our everyday life at social, professional, and academic platforms in the diverse domains across varied disciplines. When you practice, you see, there can be unknowing problems, and problems can be encountered in measurement. What can be the possible? Indirectness of measurement can be a problem. Incompleteness of the measurement. When the measurement is, the tool is incomplete, you are likely to have this problem. Then you will have relativity of measurement, and errors in measurement would be some of the problems which you may encounter in measurement and scaling. But With conceptual clarity and effective practicing of research, one can overcome these limitations and can come to interesting aspects of finding good results. There are certain sources of errors in measurement also. The various sources of errors in measurement can be respondent themselves, where the respondents either do not show interest or do not respond properly or lack in education or have a little or no idea of responding to the questionnaire. Two, in measurement, there can be a problem with the one who measures the situation. And we have no choice other than relying upon the one who measures the situation. So that can be a source of error in measurement. And undoubtedly, situation can be an issue, and test and instrument can also be a source of error in the measurement. If the test was lacking on certain parameters, the reliability, validity, and consistency were not checked and were not clear, as we discussed in the video, there can be problem with the measurement from sources. Further, the instruments can also be a problem in sources of measurements when we talk about measurement and scaling techniques. So this was brief about measurement and scaling, but hang on, there is again a very interesting video in context to measurement and scaling before we bid bye-bye to each other. Well, so far, if you have enjoyed the session, type E into the chat box. If you were bored with this session, type B into the chat box. Good to have message from Sanchana. Lovely. Good to have message from Devraj, Harish, Pooja, Professor Anil Mehta, K. Krishna Kumar. Well, we will be coming to you with your questions and related details. Let's first see this interesting video in context of measuring tools. Lovely getting responses from Somdev, Harish ji, Vinny ji, lovely, lovely. Thank you for your wonderful responses. And let me share this screen, this slide.
Hello friends, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Professor S.P. Singh from Faculty of Management Studies, Gurukul Kangdi University, Haridwar. Today we are going to study Module 6 on measurement and scaling. After studying this module, you shall be able to know the meaning of measurement and scaling, understand the types of data, comprehend the sources of measurement errors, understand the features of a good measurement, and become aware of the scaling designs. Measurement in research is composed of allocating numbers to empirical events, conforming to a set of rules. There is a three-level process picking up observable empirical events using numbers or symbols to denote aspects of the event and applying a mapping standard to rectify the observation to the symbol. Concepts used in research may be categorized as objects or as properties. Objects contain the things of common experience, while properties are the features of the objects like weight, height, posture, attitudes and intelligence, leadership ability and class affiliation or status. Various such properties of a person can be measured in a research study. Data types. The widely accepted types of data are nominal data, ordinal data, interval data and ratio data. The nominal data divides a set into mutually exclusive and collectively exhaustive categories. Nominal classification may contain of any number of different groups if the groups are mutually exclusive and collectively exhaustive. Nominal scales have the least force of the four data types since they suggest no order or distance relationship and have no arithmetic origin. Since the only quantification is the number count of cases in each category, the researcher is confined to the use of mode as the measure of central tendency. Nominal scales are particularly worthy in exploratory work where the objective is to reveal relationship rather than secure definite measurements. This kind of data is also used extensively in survey and other ex post facto research when data are categorized by major groups of the universe. Classification like respondents' marital status, gender and exposure to a certain experience exist in great number. The ordinal data includes the characteristics of nominal scale and an indicator of order. The use of an ordinal scale indicates a statement of greater than or less than or equal to without mentioning how much greater or less. An ordinal scale is higher in terms of power of measurement. The simplest ordinal scale is a ranking. When a market researcher asks a consumer to rank 5 kinds of beer from most preferred flavor to least preferred flavor, he or she is enquiring you to generate an ordinal scale of preference. Ordinal data would utilize non-parametric statistics including median and mode rank order correlation, non-parametric analysis of variance. Modeling techniques can also be applied to ordinal data. Interval scale. An interval scale is an approved quality level survey rating scale. When someone is asked to rate his satisfaction with a piece of software on a 7-point scale starting with dissatisfied to satisfied, one is employing an interval scale. It is so because it is assumed to have same distance points between each of the scale components. We can interpret differences in the distance along the scale. This is opposite to an ordinal scale where differences in order are only talked about, not differences in the degree of order. Interval scales are defined by metrics such as logarithms. In these cases, the distances are well known, equal, but they are rigorously explained on the basis of metric used. Interval scale data commonly use parametric statistical techniques including mean and standard deviation, correlation or regression, analysis of variance, factor analysis, and a complete range of advanced multivariate and modeling techniques. Ratio scale. A ratio scale is the highest degree of measurement, is not usually accessible in social research. The factor that decidedly explains a ratio scale is that it has a real 0 point. The easiest example of a ratio scale is the measurement of length. The excellent way to compare internal and ratio scales is to observe temperature. The centigrade scale has a 0 point, however, it is an arbitrary one. The Fahrenheit scale has its identical point at -320. So, even though temperature glances at it as a ratio scale, while it is an interval scale. Sources of measurement errors. There are 4 major sources of error: the respondent, the situation, the measurer, and the instrument. The respondent. Opinion difference will come from relatively stable characteristics of the respondent that affect the scores, which include employee status, ethnic group, membership, and nearness to plants. Many of these dimensions will be anticipated in the design, but others of a less obvious nature will not be. A traumatic experience of a given respondent had with an organization or its personnel may turn a respondent reluctant to express robust feelings containing negotiation, or may have little understanding of the company, but be unwilling to accept ignorance. This reluctance can lead to an interview of guesses. Respondents may also suffer from temporary factors like fatigue, boredom, anxiety, or divert concentration. These restrict the capability to reply accurately and fully. Hunger, impatience, or general variation in mood may also have an impact. Any condition that places a pressure on the interview causes grave effects on the interviewer-respondent rapport. If another person is present, that person can disturb responses by joining in, by diverting attention, or only by presence. If the respondents believe anonymity is not ensured, they may have reluctance to express certain feelings. Intercept interviews are not to draw detailed responses, while in-house interviews are more usually done. The interviewer can twist responses by rearranging the sequence of words, paraphrasing, or changing the sequence of questions. Conventional in outward look and action inserts bias, inflections of voice, and conscious or unaware prompting with smiles, nods, and so forth may inspire with confidence or dissuade certain replies. Careless mechanical process checking of the incorrect response or inability to record full replies will clearly twist results. In the data analysis stage, wrong coding, reckless tabulation, and erroneous statistical calculation may bring in further errors. The instrument. An imperfect instrument can create distortion in two major ways. First, it can be too confusing and vague. The use of difficult words and syntax beyond the understanding of the respondent is representative. Leading questions, unclear meanings, built-in defects, and several questions suggest the width of problem. The features of a good measurement. A tool should be an accurate indicator of what we are interested in measuring. There are three major criteria for evaluating an instrument, including validity, reliability, and practicality. Validity refers to the extent to which a test measures what we actually wish to measure. A widely accepted classification of validity consists of content, criterion related, or construct. Content validity, the space to which a measure covers adequately the topic under study is referred to as the content validity. Content validity is the representativeness or sampling adequacy of the content of a measuring instrument. If the instrument contains a sample which is representative of the population of the subject matter of interest, content validity is satisfactory. In order to assess the content validity of an instrument, one must first consent on the elements constituting adequate inclusion of the problem. Content validity is basically judgmental. The items of a test must be studied, each item being weighed for its presumed representative quality of the universe. This implies that each item must be evaluated for its supposed relevance to the property being measured, which is no easy task. Criterion related validity reflects the success of measures used for prediction or estimation. The researcher may desire to predict an outcome or estimate the existence of a current behavior or condition. Criterion related validity is examined by making a comparison of test or scale scores with one or more external variables or criteria believed to measure the attribute under study. One is more concerned with the predictive validity than what the test measures. In criterion related validation, the fundamental interest is often greater in the criterion than in the predictors. The higher the correction, the better the validity is. All tests are predictive as they predict a kind of outcome about some present or future state of affairs. Aptitude tests predict future achievement. Achievement tests tend to predict current and future achievement and competence, and intelligence tests are able to predict ability to learn solving problems. The greatest problem of criterion related validity is the criterion itself. Obtaining criteria may even be difficult. Cronbach has particularly stressed the decision aspects of criterion related validation. A high test in criterion related validity assists researchers take successful decisions in assigning people to treatments, consuming treatments broadly. Construct validity. A researcher generally starts with the constructs or variables entering into the relation. He might have discovered a positive correlation between two measures. The researcher wants to know why this relation exists, what is behind it. He necessarily knows constructs entering the relationship. Predictive validity. The predictive validity involves the ability of a phenomena measured at one point of time to predict another phenomena in future. If the correlation coefficient between the two is high, measure has a high predictive ability. As an example, consider the use of the common admission test to shortlist candidates for admission to the MBA program in a business school. The CAT scores are supposed to predict the candidate's aptitude for studies. Reliability. Reliability is related with consistency, accuracy, and predictability of the measure. It refers to the space to which a measurement process is free from random errors. The reliability of a scale may be measured using the two methods: test retest reliability and split half reliability. Test retest reliability. In this method, measurements are repeated of the same respondents using the same measure under similar conditions are taken. A very high correlation between the two scores indicates that the scale is reliable. A split half method is applied in case of multiple item measure. The number of items is divided on random basis into two equal parts and a correlation coefficient between the two is computed. A high correlation indicates that the internal consistency of the construct takes to greater reliability. Another measure used to test the internal consistency of a multiple item scale is Cronbach alpha. The Cronbach alpha computes the average of all possible split half relation. The Cronbach alpha computes the average of all possible split half reliabilities for a multiple item scale. This coefficient demonstrates whether the average score of all split half of the reliabilities converge to a certain point or not. Friends, in this module, you have studied the meaning of measurement and scaling, the types of data, the sources of measurement errors, the features of a good measurement, and the scaling designs. Thanks for visiting EPG Pathshala.
Well, I must say that we had an interesting session, and you see, a good administrator is the one who starts the journey on time and completes on time. So Captain Dr. Ravi Modi has been really kind enough that he started the flight right on time, and he, as the captain of this ship, along with the entire team of learned professors, Dr. S.S. Modi sir, Aarti Chopra ji, and everyone here, Professor Anil Mehta sir, I believe that the session has been indeed fruitful. We started with an initial note with some real and live examples, started a tone and a context from very interested, a short and a crisp video from Professor Tulsi, and then completed our journey of measurement, scaling, and scaling techniques through a very interesting presentation. And to help us to recapitulate the things and add some value to it, we did go through an interesting video from EPG Pathshala of Government of India, from a very senior, seasoned and a learned professor from one of the esteemed universities. I'm sure that though this session might not have given you many fine details, but yet it must have acquainted you at least with the different aspects of measurement and scaling techniques in research methodology. And the young learners at least might have got attuned to that what all encompasses of measurement and scaling techniques, and the kind of response that the participants were giving into the live chat sessions were really amazing. I must compliment Dr. Ravi Modi, Professor Anil Mehta, Aarti Chopra ji, and all the organizers for having roped in such fantastic audience who have been so participative. And believe me, such active participation didn't make me feel at all that we were on a virtual platform. It was as lively as we could have been on face-to-face platform. So with this, I wish all good wishes to the participants and back to organizers for further course of action. Thank you so very much. I wish you all a good luck, and thank you organizers for having me here.
Dr. Dahiya, thank you so much. Actually, the chat box itself says everything. Yeah. I mean, I don't have the words to say that how much this session was really wonderful, and really, everybody is so happy for today's session. You have nailed it, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir, for this wonderful session, sir. And once again, I would like to request all the participants to please start your videos, so that we can take some screenshots. And now it's time to welcome our Joint Secretary, Dr. Aarti Chopra. She has joined today. She was busy in some, some assignments, so that's why she didn't join yesterday and, in the first day also. And I would like to invite Dr. Aarti Chopra, our Joint Secretary, Inspira Research Association, to give vote of thanks on behalf of Inspira Research Association and KG College. Dr. Aarti Chopra, ma'am.
A very good evening. Kindly let me know, sir, if I'm audible.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay. A very good evening to each one of you present on this platform today. First of all, I pay apologies for not being able to present for first 2 days of the workshop, though it is almost impossible that I not being available or present for any Inspira program, but there were certain issues and I could not manage somehow to attend last 2 days, but today I have been immensely benefited with the session from Professor Ashish Dahiya. Thank you so much, sir. Professor S.S. Modi, sir, President, Inspira Research Association-IRA, Jaipur. Professor Anil Mehta, Senior Vice President, Inspira-IRA, Jaipur. Dr. Captain Ravikant Modi, sir, General Secretary, Inspira-IRA, Jaipur. The whole team of KG College of Arts and Science, Coimbatore. At the outset, I wish to show our deepest gratitude towards our today's resource person for the session on research methodology for this week-long FDP on research methodology being jointly organized by KG College of Arts and Science, Coimbatore and Inspira Research Association-IRA, Jaipur. Professor Ashish Dahiya is the Professor, Institute of Hotel and Tourism Management and Founder Director, Center for Life Skills and Soft Skills, MD University, Rohtak, Haryana. Sir, I was so surprised when I saw your details that at one place you are talking about the research and you have such intense knowledge on research methodology. And at the same time, you are the founder for Soft Skills and Life Skills Center. So that makes a very unique and very beautiful combination. Sir's topic today, measurement scales and scaling techniques in research methodology, was of utmost significance for each and every researcher. He described the nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio scales which are used to measure qualitative as well as quantitative data. Quantifying variables in data analysis is a crucial task, which may be done by using proper scales. We are highly grateful to Professor Ashish Dahiya to touch and make elaborative deliberation on this beautiful and important aspect of research. Professor Dahiya also explained the scaling techniques as comparative and non-comparative with various sub-classifications as Likert scale, rank order, staple, paired comparison, and so on. And that too in such a lucid manner, along with such interesting figures and some additional videos. So we are heartily thankful to you for your excellent deliberation. We are thankful on behalf of Inspira Research Association, KG College of Arts and Science, and especially on behalf of all the participants who have joined from all across the nation. I am sure all the participants must have highly benefited, as Dr. Ravikant Modi has just said, that it is truly evident from our chat box only that so many messages are there appreciating the way you have explained the topic so nicely. Thank you so much once again from each and every participant. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Professor Anil Mehta Saab, Professor Modi sir, Dr. Ravi Modi ji, Dr. Aarti Chopra ji, and each one of you. I wish you all good health and happiness. Stay awesome, stay productive, and I think that's what the Research Association-IRA is trying to do, spreading education for a happier and a healthier world, letting researchers attuned with the research practices and helping them in their research journey. My good wishes and Ram Ram.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Professor Ashish, for conducting and contributing the session very effectively and wonderfully. And sir, we will meet soon in our next event. So thank you so much once again for sparing a wonderful time. Thank you so much, Dr. Aarti. Thank you so much, Professor Mehta, sir. Thank you so much, all the participants, the team of KG College and team of Inspira Research Association. Thank you so much. And we will meet tomorrow at the same time for the fourth day session on sampling design and statistical tools by Prof.